Hej allesammans på Powergamer.ch. Idag är vi i Cambridge och vi tittar in Jagex nya titel BlockNLoad. Och jag har suttit och spelat massor idag. Vi ska titta lite närmare på det och prata lite med. And whom is with me today?
I'm Alex Horton, and I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Jagex, and I work a lot on BlockNLoad.
Okay, so for people who don't know the hierarchy of Jagex, what exactly is it that you do with the project?
With this project, I teamed up with the VP, David Venger Solari, and we kind of put the project together based on some ideas we had. I'd worked on Ace of Spades before and wanted to come back at this and do it a little bit differently, and really the game is a lot of what we conceived way back over a year ago.
Yeah, because at first glance I can't say, like, it didn't make much sense to me, like, what is this? Was my first thought when I saw it. And then I sat down and it made a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
After like a couple of rounds, of course.
Yeah.
So what is the core idea? What is BlockNLoad?
It was really about how to get that blend between the fun of a block sandbox game with a shooter, but also with a sort of tactical and strategic. It's almost like tower defense, really. You know, I felt that some of the block shooters were just shooting. It was just about smashing up the world, and that's cool. But what would happen if we made a time and a reason to actually build and defend and set everything up, and then have that curtain drop and then fight over the map that in many ways the map that you've made? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, here's how the team did it, and then employ your strategies.
Because you kind of have a pre-made map, and then you get a certain time limit, and you can build up your defense and preparing for the other team's attack, and also like preparing your own defense.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up with the idea to use blocks, really? You said it came from, like, the idea came from before, but it feels more refined in BlockNLoad.
It's much more refined. I think another thing that was really important was to take. I think blocks are really, really important because we can all relate to them. They're good units to build a wall quickly or do whatever you want with them. But also, one of the real things to change was that we could have a concrete block that was tough. We could have a wooden block that was very quick to build but quick to blow away. And that really just started this building. Like, what can we do with this format? I mean, Mojang and Minecraft did their thing with that in a brilliant way, and we're like, well, what's something that serves our gameplay? And if our gameplay is about defensive and offensive strategy and tactics, and people want to build a castle with them or whatever, then you know, it just made a lot of sense. I think that, you know, I come from a CGI background. If we were going to intricately build walls, then it's not as much fun. It's just that unit of building that's fun.
Exactly. And it's not just blocks. Like, some of them are more like there are springs, there's like boosts.
Well,
and
that's
so on.
it. Yeah, there's the two things. I mean, one of the things that was like, let's bring properties to these blocks. Then I always wanted to have turrets because I thought that'd be fun, because then I could build a wall and put a turret behind it. But then Venger was like, oh, let's have some springs to fling people up. We talked about boosting people. We wanted glue so you could make a hole and people get stuck in there. And then it just became about those combinations. Like, what happens if I build a pit with glue and a turret? And, you know, that was how people could have fun and do really devious things.
And in the presentation before, you talked a little bit about how you don't want to nerf away the fun. And for, like, the boost combined with the spring was one of those things that you felt like, oh my god, this might break the game, but then the actual tester said no, you have to keep it.
Well, no, I think that's it, and it's there's nerfing away the fun, but there's also, if you're not careful, game designers add too many rules to everything and take the fun out. So it was like, how loose can we keep this? And in a way, it was like almost like, what can you do not to break it, but we wanted to see people do unexpected things with it.
But
in the name of winning.
Aren't you afraid of, in the future, maybe someone will find a superior tactics, for example? And how would you tackle that?
I think we're going to have to look at that as it happens. But I mean, it's already been well tested. There's definitely going to be things people are going to find. People are going to do things we didn't expect. But that's what new map designs, new characters are for as well. Like, we've tested it very carefully. We've really thought about it. We don't think there's any big holes, but bring it on. Let's see. That's what innovation comes from. Yeah, exactly. Break it.
But yeah, you brought up the characters. We were able to test around, I think it was 6 characters,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I tested them all out. And whoever came up with the name for the Mexican ninja, OP, Juan Shinobi, to get the fat bonus this Christmas.
Yeah, well,
because
I'm not allowed to take
brilliant.
bonuses.
But so could you tell me a bit more how you guys were brainstorming or kind of growing these characters to fit in through the model, because they're all very different. They're different classes and plays differently.
They all came from different things, really. It was like, one of the things early on was that certain blocks should only go to certain characters. So with the turret guy, it was like, hey, well, if someone's going to build turrets, let's make him like he's in construction. And I'd lived in New York. I'm like, hey, I want a New York construction guy, and he's going to be Italian, and we can call him Toretto because that sounds Italian like a turret. So that was him. I think that Eliza was like, we want AoE.
Eliza, we have here.
And
with
Eliza
us,
here,
yeah.
we wanted AoE, area denial effects and that kind of thing. It was like, well, rather than using magic, let's use gas. So that should be like a crazy chemist. So that idea. So sometimes it comes from a block. Then it was just like, we want a ninja because ninjas are great. So
Ninjas are always great.
yeah, exactly. Like everyone says ninjas are great. Everyone says robots are great. So on we went. And it was actually the Shinobi name come from me looking for like, how are we going to name this ninja? And it always should be a little play on words. It's like, oh, Shinobi. It's like, that's like Kenobi, Obi-Wan. Hey, what if he was a Mexican ninja? So we're always just trying to have fun with that kind of thing. And Sarge is probably the least intelligent, the least clever. He's probably one of the least intelligent people in the game, but probably the least clever idea. But even then, how can we bring some personality to him? So you have sort of, Rambo meets Serpico kind of character. So,
But
it was always like, did that for me? It was always like, does that get a smile?
yeah.
And that's
But
really
was
important.
there always was it the plan from the beginning to always have this comic relief-ish thing, that it should be a funny twist on it, or did you go out and like, let's make something serious first? Or
No,
did that change along the way?
For me, it changed, but for me, it was always about putting that spirit into it and having fun. I didn't want a shooter that was about the kill. I
Yeah.
wanted it about the fun. The block format kind of means you've got to go that way. Like, I don't know if we could have made it all camo colors, but then as well, it was like, a big part of it was to talk to our age group and all of us as gamers to be like, this isn't a kids thing. Like, this has got some Beavis and Butthead humor in there. This has got some of that Simpsons stuff, as well as a lot of us love a lot of that kind of stuff. And whilst none of them are direct influence, it was like, we got to speak a language to gamers. Teaching humor there.
So, at the moment, all we played is 5 versus 5.
Yeah.
Is there any other kinds of modes that's going to come in the game?
We made a very conscious decision on this one that it was all about this last year of building this game has all been about focusing on this. There's some variants, as you played some variants within that, different numbers of cubes and bases and so on, but really it was about focusing on this and seeing if that works, because that to me was one of the real things we brought to this to BlockNLoad, was about being very focused on a session rather than providing a lot of variety and everything else. So, and the idea being you provide this framework and then mad things happen within that.
Yeah. Because the fun thing that I kind of experienced while I played was that even though you get all these tools and you get like all the different blocks, you have the different types of characters and stuff, and you think like, okay, how can I master using these? But sometimes you surprise yourself with the easiest strategy actually being the best.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you can just dig yourself through the whole stage if you want to, like, and just get into their bases. And it's going to be fun, I think, to see how players in the future like adapt to this and what kind of strategies they kind of come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is one of the things is like, whilst there's just one mode, we've done our best to remove as many rules as possible and make it as flexible as possible, so it really does become different every time.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't think a game like this would work very well like 1 versus 1.
No.
But as a party game, it works great.
Yeah.
But how much thought have you put into the actual like competitive part of this?
I think it's been something we've really, really we've really had to balance that argument all the way through it. It's like, could this be super competitive? And there's like, we would love it to be, and we think it could be, but first things first, it's like, do people want to play it? Are people going to have fun with it? And more importantly, are people going to want to come back and have more fun with it? So before it was competitive, I wanted it to be like a game that was like, you won't do that to me again. Like, one more time, you won't do that again. And that, to me, was the real spirit of playing again. And just being amazed by how clever your friends could be, or what that team just did to you. Or like making your mad plan work. So that was really important. And then from that, we're like, well, imagine like if that was watched. One of the ideas at the center of it was, I was thinking like, what if this was like a TV game show, you know, with a curtain, and then both sides had all of these traps and stuff in there. And then what would that be like to watch? So that spectator competitive element is certainly intriguing to us. But we've got to see if people like the game and what they do with it.
Okay, so BlockNLoad is released on Steam when?
First quarter of next year. I don't think there's an exact date yet.
But you guys are releasing a beta right now, right?
Yes, and the pre-order gets you access to the beta straight away.
Is there any plans on releasing it on any other like consoles or any other?
I do want to see how we go on Steam. If we get a lot of love, a lot of people love it. I think there's some obvious places we can take it. Yeah. But if we think we got a fun game, but we're not. We'll let the people decide. So
do you love it?
We're very proud of it. Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
With those words, I think we close for today, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.